Good Yontif. There's a city in the world I'm just so absolutely fascinated about. It's called Via Grande, and it's in the country of Sardinia, which is considered a blue zone. And that, I mean, it's a special region of the world where people live much longer than average. Via Grande, it's not known for its tourism. It's not known for that obelisk in the city square that celebrates some military victory or the picturesque European cobblestone streets that travel guidebooks would mention. Rather, it's known for its density of apartments and interwoven alleys. Because in this village, there are 10 times as many centenarians as there are in North America. Think about this. 10 times the amount of people that are over 100 years old in this tiny country as there are in North America. So of course we say, or ask, why? Because people are happy, and they especially love being with other people. Villagers are greeted not just by family and extended family, but by friends, neighbors, the barkeeper, the grocer. I don't think they have a rabbi, but I'm certain they have a priest on a daily basis. For this instance, just put aside COVID if we can. Because science teaches us that face-to-face contact, shaking hands, hugging, a high five, or a fist bump is enough to release oxytocin, a powerful hormone that helps us increase our levels of trust and lowers our cortisol levels, meaning our stress. These Sardinians are frequently releasing oxytocin because the amount of connection that happens in their lives daily. It's like TikTok or Twitter for them. But instead of videos or tweets, it's real life with real, genuine relationships. As Dr. Susan Pinker, who conducted this incredible research, said, and that's when I discovered a low-fat, gluten-free diet. It's not what it takes to live to 100 in the blue zone. I've always loved reading about Via Grande. I loved hearing about a real place where people truly know and care about each other. A place where their definition of community is stopping by, saying hello, sharing a story, a good laugh, and of course, a bite to eat. Each home in this village is almost like a real-life episode of Friends, where Joey, Chandler, Ross, Rachel, Monica, and Phoebe meet up at Central Perk daily. Because God willing, the threat of not being safe from COVID will soon be over. Yet, I'm so worried as to how our community and country will reconnect. I'm worried that because of forced social restrictions on social gatherings will continue to lead to permanent isolation and loneliness. I'm so worried that being by ourselves will become the new norm. Because even before COVID, loneliness was still a silent killer. Medical experts believe that loneliness poses a greater threat to our health than obesity. And its short life effects are comparable to smoking an average of 15 cigarettes a day. Almost half of Americans struggle from loneliness, putting them at greater risk for developing heart disease, inflammatory disease, cancer, diabetes, and especially cognitive decline. Our children, including young adults, they are not immune to the effects of loneliness, where depression, anxiety, and other mental illnesses are at all-time highs. Suicide rates among youth increased by 57% between 2007 and 2018. It's certainly no coincidence that in 2007, Apple launched its first generation iPhone, which in effect led to the rise of apps, social media platforms, and phone addiction. And a growing number of psychological studies showed us that the use of social media can exacerbate loneliness and worsen mental health. Social media users are 3 times more likely to be depressed than occasional users. But even before the rise of smartphones in 2007, we've been on this collision course of loneliness for decades. We stopped relying on what really matters the most, our happiness. We stopped coming to things that made us happy and healthy, such as frequent synagogue attendance, volunteering, participating in bowling leagues or book clubs, and the long-forgotten family dinner, the kind where everybody had their spot at the table, because children who ate with their families 5 times per week were more likely to earn top grades at school. And Rhodes Scholars, what do they have in common? It's usually one thing. That is, they had family dinners regularly. Harvard University's Department of Adult Development decided to conduct a study on tracking the lives of 724 people. This study wanted to answer the following question: what makes a good life? What is happiness? The report indicated the following: good relationships keep us healthier and happy. But here's the key factor: in-person social connections are really good for us. It's good for our brains, while loneliness is toxic. People who are more personally connected to family, to friends, and to community are happier, physically healthier, and live longer than people who are less well connected. And it certainly makes sense why the villagers of Villa Grande are happy and live longer. As science and social change continue to prove the benefit of being with each other, so did Judaism immediately in our tradition. When God created the world, every aspect of creation, whether it was the light, the skies, the ocean, land, or the animals, the book of Genesis tells us that these creative acts were good. But when God created Adam and placed him alone and isolated, even in the beauty of the Garden of the Eden, the Torah tells us that this was not good. And our rabbis teach us that, for the first time, something is seen as not good: human loneliness in the absence of a friend. Therefore, God created an Ezer Kenegdo, Eve, his companion, to end the first instance of human isolation ever mentioned in our existence. I wish that I could say to all of you, the solution to loneliness is as simple as having family dinners. Try putting your phone down. That post can wait. And after all, we really don't need to see a picture of what you're about to eat. And actually talk to someone you know at the table, the person either right next to you or in front of you. I wish it was as simple as saying hello to the grocers, or to your neighbor, or to the mail carrier. I wish it was as simple as telling you to come to shul for services and volunteering here at Temple Emanu-El. But you know what? It really is that simple. Do what I just mentioned, and life will not be as lonely. During the Rosh Hashanah service, shofar service last week, we recited the prayer, Hayom Harat Olam. Today the world is reborn. To remind us that despite our limitations of the past year, there's a new year waiting for us, hoping that we can change inward. Given this teaching from this prayer, I want to suggest something difficult for many of us to do, but well worth the effort. I'm talking about the opportunity to try something new, especially when we think we're going to hate it. And my reference point is me. Last year, Rachel and I went to New York. And whenever we have the opportunity to visit the city, Rachel always buys tickets to see a Broadway show. And I want to say, the thought of going to a Broadway show is not something I look forward to. By that I mean, I never want to go to a Broadway show. Rachel was fully prepared for her adventure. She quickly learned all the songs to the show and immediately began singing as one foot entered into the Uber. And I prepared myself by practicing the art of rolling my eyes when she wasn't looking. But sometimes we're asked to do something we really don't want to do. I know this because it's in the fine print of my ketubah, my marriage contract. But within the first few numbers of Act 1, I had an epiphany. I was glad I was here. I paused and I whispered to Rachel, admitting that she picked a good show for us to see together. I began how to appreciate how this particular musical truly speaks to the severe challenges of loneliness. When we force ourselves to do something we think we won't like, it can force us to experience humanity on so many different levels, which is truly the essence of the high holy days and why we're here. I forced myself to do something I did not want to do, and I learned that loneliness is so detrimental to our lives that when we left the show, I immediately told Rachel that I felt I had a moral obligation to talk about this message for this Yontif. But we must acknowledge that loneliness is thrust upon us when we don't have a choice. It's unkind, and it's certainly unfair. But we also must admit that in the last few decades, we have acted on making a conscious choice to be alone. We have acted of our own volition. For various reasons, I know that many of us were hanging on by that thread. We barely have enough gas in the tank to get through the day. Our work, it's more demanding than ever. We're stretched between too many obligations. Our children, especially teenagers, they're deeply hurting inside. They aren't getting enough sleep. Teens are feeling intense pressure from high school, from standardized test scores, from extracurricular activities. We know from social groups, and of course the pressure to get into college. And in the end, we're giving it all that we got as parents, as students, and in our occupations. We're trying to meet every deadline, to meet every expectation, but it feels that it's never enough because we are getting pulled in every direction. And therefore we feel lost and we want to be found. We get to rejoice in the gift that Yom Kippur gives us to us all, the gift to begin a new year without the fear of failure and to aspire to be God's holy partner in the world. This is our year to do the simple things to help our loneliness. And this is the year when I give a Broadway show an open-minded chance. And this will be the year that you allow yourself to do the things that you don't want to do. Because when you put yourselves out there, it opens up endless opportunities for us to grow, to learn perspective, some appreciation, and not to be alone. When we do the simple and hard things, by enabling ourselves to put the phone down, ask about someone's day, do something you wouldn't normally do, our oxytocin will be released, making us happier, healthier, and living meaningful lives. We can't move to Via Grande. But I will say this to my Temple Emanu-El family. Those who feel alone and isolated, who feel that the world is against them, I want you to know that this place will be your Via Grande. This place will always find you. Good Yentif.